So welcome everybody. Again, some of you, welcome to the audience here in the room with us, and a warm welcome to everybody that is joining us online. I think we have about 120, 125 people on the Zoom call, which is very nice to know. Particular welcome to our 4 panelists who are with us today. We have, as you know from the invitation, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, the Honorable Nkosini Hlabisa. Minister, welcome. Thank you for giving up some of your time. Next to the Minister, we have Professor Jaap de Visser of the Dula Omar Institute at the University of the Western Cape, an old friend of ours. And then I'm very happy to welcome 2 new speakers, new panelists, at least to CPLO events. Ms. Sharon Adams, who is the Head of Portfolio for the Free State, Northern and Western Capes in the Office of the Auditor General. Sharon, welcome. And then all the way from Johannesburg, thank you for coming down, Chelsea Northern and Chamba, who is the Organization Plan Act, as the Information and Resource Coordinator. Welcome, Chelsea. So our purpose, as you know, is to dig a little bit into the state of local government. The IEC has proposed that we will have our next local government elections sometime in November. I think they're suggesting the 2nd Wednesday or something in November next year, but either way, about 12 months from now. And local government, as we know, has been a source of a lot of concern in our country. Things are not nearly as healthy as they should be in terms of competence, capacity, unfortunately also in terms of corruption. Our chance will come a year from now to express our views about all of that. But we need to understand what's happening. We need to understand something of the reasons behind the weaknesses in local government. And in a positive sense, we need to understand a bit more about what can be done to improve the situation. What are the interventions from the side of government, but also from the side of civil society, from us as the citizens, in order to bring about a healthier state of local government? And those are the questions that I'm hoping my 4 panelists today will be able to explore. My first question goes to Minister Hlabisa. Minister, beginning of last month, you convened an indaba on local government up at Gallagher Estate, I believe it was, 2nd and 3rd of October. And that indaba had a number of objectives, amongst others, to drive a turnaround for municipalities, to strengthen local governance, to try to restore public confidence in local government, and to improve accountability and ethical leadership. So the first question is, briefly, what were the most important points or results that emerged from that indaba?
Thank you very much, Mike, and good afternoon to everyone in this room and those who are in the platform. When you said, let us have a moment of silence, what came into my mind during that moment of silence was that if everyone in this room or in the platform can remember the responsibility we hold to fix our country, rather than saying somebody else must do it. If every citizen can take it upon himself or herself that I have a specific role to play to get things right, we will definitely get things right. Yes, indeed. We had a local government in Durban last month. It was a good moment. When I opened the conference, I made reference to a famous quote from the book Tale of Two Cities. In South Africa, we have municipalities that are trying and doing their best. But also we have municipalities that are completely failing to deliver basic services. So now when I opened the conference, I said we are at a time like the famous quote from the book, that we have best times in some of municipalities, but you also have the worst times in some of the municipalities. The Indaba was a refreshing moment. It was a combination of professionals, academia, a variety of stakeholders, including the civil society, including our political leadership throughout the country. So now it was a moment to reflect, to see the reality, and to look back from the beginning of the local governance system in a new dispensation after 1994, and to make an assessment as to how far have we managed to transform the local government and make it fit for purpose. Reflected honestly, a lot of things have not gone right. But one of the outcomes we agreed upon was that depoliticization of the administration should be a key matter. Professionalization of staff must be an order of the day. The cadre deployment destroyed good intentions of the white paper of 1998. What is good, Mike, across political parties in the GNU, whom most of them are controlling local government space, there is a common view that we need to depoliticize the administration. That was a major outcome. Secondly, we also agreed that we cannot determine who must be a ward councillor, but a mayor, the speaker, the exco, the MPEC chair, they must have certain competencies. Because if a person is a mayor, is playing an oversight role over millions of rand with zero competence, what do you expect? We are not saying put matric as a requirement or a diploma as a requirement, but there should be certain competencies the councils they must have so that they can play a meaningful oversight role. They can be able to interpret the audit report from the AG. They must be able to see the annual financial statements before they're being submitted that there's something not right here. They must not be shocked by the adverse outcome because right from the beginning, they never understood what is it that we are submitting to the Auditor General. And thirdly, consequence management must be an order of the day. The moment you deploy political leadership that have competencies, they will be able to hold the administration to account. The moment you deploy people on the basis of being professionals, a competent MM will go for a competent CFO, will go for a competent engineer. But if you deploy a cadre will deploy another cadre. And the cadre cannot introduce consequence management to another cadre because cadre belongs, they report to a political party. So now accountability was a third thing that emerged out of the conference. Fourthly, integrated planning and resilience. Working in silos. We had a firm view that is not going to take us forward. But if municipalities can share the services they have under the banner of district development model, if we can plan together all three spheres of government, the budget we have as a country, if we can work together all the three spheres, we can go miles. But if we duplicate, the national government is planning, the provincial is planning for a ward, because whatever the national government is doing takes place in a ward. Whatever the provincial government is doing takes place in a ward. Whatever the municipality is doing takes place in a ward. If you are not planning together, you can spend huge sums of money in the same ward, non-coordinated, with less impact. And fifthly, we said the reforms we are doing must talk to each other. One, the coalitions bill. Coalition government have come to stay in South Africa. After elections next year, the majority of municipalities will be hung municipalities. And 10 years from now, we are likely to have no municipality with one party being a majority. We need to start preparing to manage coalitions. We need to start getting taught how to ensure that in a multi-party democracy, we are able to function. We are all aware, City of Johannesburg, in a period of 4 years, have had about 5 mayors. It's a mess. That is why City of Johannesburg has decayed to what it is. Because if there is a change of government leadership, year or 6 months after 6 months, there is no stability, there is no coordination, there will be no progress. So now, the coalitions bill, we are going to champion it, that by the time elections are held, this bill must be an act that is going to regulate when to change the mayor, under which circumstances, because if it is abrupt, it will create true instability. But last but one, citizen engagement. People must take the responsibility. They must go and vote a party that is not serving them, and vote in a party they believe is going to serve them. If people abstain from voting, the minority will govern you, sometimes badly. Now, the conference, the Indaba, made a clarion call that every citizen has the responsibility to take an action. And lastly, the review of the white paper on local government. The review is going to be completed next year. This is an amazing opportunity for our country to make bold decisions, not to fear the unknown. Reimagine the next 30 years. The white paper was introduced in 1998, about 27 years ago. We have seen how things have been. We are not proud. It was good to introduce transformation. Now, if we have an opportunity to review it, we must make bold decisions. We must think about the next 30 years, what kind of the local government you want to have. You want to see a local government that is going to be fit for purpose in terms of the structure, in terms of the funding model, in terms of how get a sphere of government that will not be failing to cut grass, failing to fix potholes, failing salaries. If you have a local government, a municipality that is unable to do basics, why do you keep it? Because you are staying with the liability. I want to conclude on that note, Mike.
Thanks, Minister. Sharon, let me come to you. Every year, the Auditor General's office releases a consolidated report into local government, and we hear that of the 257 municipalities, 30 achieved a clean audit, or maybe 28, or maybe 31, or even 33 in a good year. It's 1 in 6 on average, more or less, manages a clean audit. But then some people say, well, a clean audit isn't everything, because we must also look at factors like transformation and so on. From the point of view of the Auditor General, who's there to look after our money and make sure that it is properly spent and accounted for, what do you identify as the key problems at local government level?
Good afternoon, Mike, and good afternoon to the audience and those that's online. Really a privilege for me to be here. Definitely, the Auditor General issued a report last year on the audit outcome, and maybe for last year we had 41 clean audits, only 16%. So a very minute number compared to the 257 municipalities. What we've definitely seen in the system, there is definitely some root causes and some failures in the system. So first of all, we've also seen generally in the local governments, and why a clean audit is critically important. And a lot of times we go into this argument, clean audit does not equal service delivery. But what we have seen over the years, where there's a clean audit, municipalities are able to respond quicker to any service delivery challenges. I always put the question back to show me a disclaimed audit, show me a qualified audit that had better service delivery than a clean audit. So that plays quite a critical role. We've also seen a number of regressions in the local government system, and where we see the issue of regression with municipalities, specifically in the area of non-compliance to laws and regulations. And that is where we find a lot of the accountability failures happens within the system. So as you know, over the years, we've issued material irregularities in the local government space. Now, one of the type of audit opinions that we would like to eradicate is the disclaimers of audit opinion. So currently there is 15 for this year that we've got left in total. And this is instances where there is huge accountability failures, where people are not held accountable. So that is what we see in local government. And myself being part of the Material Irregularity Committee, we see that many times there's no proper consequence management. So what we find, we go and audit, we report, we come back the next year, we report, we even issue material irregularities, and you get non-responsiveness in a lot of these instances. What we've also seen, so one of the key things that we did last year, we wanted to just get an understanding when we're looking at the whole spectrum of local government, where is the governance failures? So there's some work that we actually did where we've looked from a governance perspective, specifically the roles and responsibility of parliament, legislatures, council, mayors, and municipal managers. And we went to what is the law saying about who must do what in the system. And based on the work that we do, that was also reported in the Auditor General's report as part of this governance failure, we saw that from accountability system perspective, at a point in time, there's a responsibility, for example, on the municipal manager to table their audit reports at the legislatures. And very, very few legislators call them to account. Similarly, there's a responsibility for them to do the oversight of say, what are we going to do about the Auditor General's finding in the audit report? And a lot of times those things are not even disclosed in the annual report. So what we've seen from Parliament to the legislatures, to council, to the mayors, to the municipal manager, across the board, the governance failures that we have seen in the system. From a material irregularity perspective, we've issued quite a number of material irregularities in the local government space, 446, just in the local government space. And what we have seen with these material irregularities, there is in a lot of cases, so where would you like responsiveness? You would like responsiveness immediately when you issue that finding to an accounting officer. Many of our material irregularities goes from giving it in the audit report to recommendation phase, to remedial action, and then ultimately then to what we call a certificate of debt. So these are some of the fundamental failures that we have seen and the root causes within the system. And similarly, when it comes to the part of the infrastructure, because we know there's a lot of money spent on infrastructure. And when we go back to the drawing board to say, what is actually going wrong in this specific space? And it comes back to whatever the money was intended to spend, the money is not spent on those things that's intended. And I mean, in our audit report, we report those findings of non-compliance where those money is not spent. And in a lot of times, there's examples when you actually want to confirm, was the road built, was the dam constructed, there's nothing existent. So there's a couple of examples also that we've got in our audit in our general report relating to some of these material irregularities that has been raised. The one saddest part, I think, when we're looking at some of it was specifically around the wastewater treatment plant, where you see these things impact the citizens on the ground, where effluent is flowing in front of their houses. So a number of material irregularities we raised throughout the country in these instances where we've seen these failures that happen within the local government space. So I think across the board, the key thing is about the governance failures, accountability failures, and then the skills and capacities. And that is one of the key things that the Auditor General in a general report that she highlighted.
Thank you. I want to come to you, Jaap, if I may now, because you've written quite a lot about what you suggest are the areas in which there needs to be legislative reform around local government. And the Minister has mentioned already the question of coalitions. There's a coalitions bill or a bill with, or try to deal with the problems around coalitions. That's one thing that I'd like you to address. And also then the question of thresholds. Some people have mooted the idea that we should have a threshold of 1%, 2%, whatever, of the vote to allow parties to have representation in order to eliminate, as it were, the one-person parties. What are your views on strengthening coalition governance and also on thresholds?
Thank you so much, Mike, and good afternoon, everyone. Also from my side, to be here and to be part of this fantastic panel. And it's an honor to be here together with the Minister and my colleagues from the Auditor General and so thanks so much for this opportunity. So when it comes in, my first response is always, let's be careful. Let's not be hasty with trying to regulate coalitions. I think the coalitions bill that is currently being proposed by the department represents a very moderate approach and I think a very good approach to not overreaching into regulating coalitions, but making a few changes. I think there's 3 areas of intervention. A few small changes to the law, I think, would help. But most of the work, I think, needs to be done in us getting used to coalitions, as the Minister indicated. And I think I'm very encouraged by the Minister's honest and frank to say we'll only have coalitions. And that really is what our electoral system is intended to achieve. Our electoral system was never intended as a system that reflects the plurality of views and therefore also produces a scrambled egg outcome. That's not need to get used to coalitions, develop practices, conventions, as I call them, GNU, is against all delays. With all of that, it is still functioning. It's working. And we are learning as we go along on how to resolve disputes, maybe not in the media by shouting at each other, but behind closed doors, resolving. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in developing and refining cultures and traditions of coalitions. But back to the law. So I do think a few changes are necessary. For example, when we go to elections next year, either early 2027 or end of 2026, there's a general election, and then within 2 weeks, the council must elect a speaker. Now, if we need to give councils a little bit more time to mop up the confetti, govern with whom, let's not force them to do that within 2 weeks. I think that's a fairly easy change that can be. Secondly, I think council for office speaker, currently all of that is done by a secret elections, such as you and I in a voting booth where your vote is your secret. No, this is a vote in Parliament, in the legislature. We want to know what you voted for. Did you vote in favor or against that candidate? That will also remove the behind closed doors wheeling and around. If I give you this, then will you vote for my mayoral candidate or office bearers out in the open? So those are small changes. They're not silver bullets. They will not make a big difference. The issue of thresholds, that's the big one. You took me there. It's a very contentious issue, because what a threat would have, and there's a 1% threshold, the electoral vote in your municipality. Politically kingmakers or queenmakers, going wherever those were the biggest in terms of who they would collaborate with. And there's more, we're doing some research and introduce the threshold becomes. I would argue that the Constitution allows for that. It says that the system of elections must be general proportional. So my argument is that 1% threshold loss, and I think it would be good for our democracy. You already see, for example, probably because they see the account rates, we're going to be too small in continue to be part of forces. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Apologies to the online audience. I think we dropped you for a minute or so, but it is reconnected now. On the threshold question, maybe also just to add that we already have a threshold for the national parliament, for example, in terms of the 0.25% situation. So it's a very low threshold, but it's there already, and no one has suggested that that's unconstitutional. Chelsea, I want to come to you, the voice of civil society. We've had government, we've had academia, civil society, and you come to us from, I think at the moment we're all looking at Johannesburg with great interest because of the G20, because of the announcement, the early announcement that Helen Zille is going to make herself available to be mayor. That certainly among vulnerable communities in Johannesburg. What are they saying? A very general question. What are the most vulnerable communities saying about the state of local government? And in particular, if you can, the youth, the young people that we hear are losing interest, are not registering as voters, are not turning out to vote in elections. What's their mood?
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon to everyone here. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists and to everyone online. By way of introduction, I'm from Plan Act, and Plan Act is a Johannesburg-based nonprofit organization that has a very special history in the space of community development and democracy in South Africa. So as Mike said, we actually celebrated 40 years of enabling change just last week. And one thing that came out quite strongly was how local government is struggling to be inclusive of communities, which is probably the reason why the state of local government is the way it is. Just to come back to your question, Mike, in terms of the general feeling, what we are seeing is that communities feel that local government has lost its developmental agenda. You know, it has become more transactional. And what I mean by that is we are finding that residents have to pay extra for basic services that they should be receiving for free. And services are being provided as favors and rather not rights, you know, not basic rights. There's also a feeling of exhaustion in terms of having to fight for basic services like water, sanitation, or even refuse removal. And we work in particular in informal settlements where these services should be provided for free, you know. And the other feeling is that the citizen structures that are there currently, they are for influence. So I'm speaking in terms of the IDP, I'm speaking in terms of the ward committees. They're simply not functional in the community. And how we intervene as Plan Act is through active citizens within the community. We support over 90 communities spread across Gauteng, Ekurhuleni, Gauteng, Mpumalanga, and Northwest. So 90 communities. So what I'm presenting today is a general feeling of those communities. And I think also what we are picking up is that people have lost confidence in representative democracy, which is probably the reason why we are seeing a lot of independent candidates. I mean, there are other reasons, but maybe that's one of them, because people want to directly influence democracy. And then on your question on you know, people giving up on democracy, I think people are not giving up on local democracy, but they're rather losing faith in its ability to deliver meaningful change. So I think the general feeling is that there is collapsing trust, but there's still a lot of desire to participate from what we see in our work. So people are resilient. They're not giving up, especially the people that work with civil society organizations such as Plan Act. And then in terms of your point about the elections, what we are seeing with the, I mean, especially with the upcoming elections in 2026, there are two different forces pulling in different directions in terms of the young and the old and those who are active in local government. I think firstly, people are tired of broken promises from what we see, and people are tired of not seeing their votes translating to better services. But then on the other hand, we are seeing that communities that work with civil society like us, they want accountability, they want transparency. And we have laws that are beautifully written to demand and to lay out for transparency and accountability. But we're not seeing that beauty on the ground. You know, that's why you would see a community like Coronationville or Westbury in Johannesburg, you know, having service delivery protests because they've gone for years and months. And sometimes other people, even other communities that are not low-income communities without water. So we have a water crisis, and that frustrates people quite a lot. I think in closing, what we are seeing is that communities are doing their part. They are monitoring, they are engaging, they are holding government to account. But my question is, when will government meet them halfway? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to turn quickly to possible interventions. Solutions is too strong a word, but possible interventions. And there was an interesting one just the other day, I think it was over the weekend or the end of last week. Sharon, your boss, the Auditor General, issued a certificate of debt. I'm not quite clear whether it was the first time ever or the first time for many, many years. But what it amounts to is that a certain municipal manager in the Northwest Province has now been told, you personally have to pay back 4.6 million rands from a water scheme that was mismanaged. The AG's office tried to intervene over a couple of years to put it back on track, was ignored. More millions were lost. So this comes under the heading of what the minister mentioned as consequence management. There will be consequences. Can you tell us, is this just like a flash in the pan, a very unusual case, or does it signal a new approach from your office?
Thank you so much, Mike, for the question. Definitely 100% right. That was on Friday when the AG made an announcement about this first certificate. It's the first one ever that's been issued since we've got the powers to issue material irregularity since 1819. So with this specific case, it's one basically where our team actually picked up the specific contract in 1819. And at that point in time, when this material irregularity was picked up for water tankering service, so how the finding was picked up, when the supplier charged the municipality for delivering water tankering services to the community, they overcharged per kilometer. So instead of saying from here to there it's 20, they say it's 40 kilometers, and that's how it was picked up initially. So the total amount at that point in time, when we picked up the finding and communicated the material irregularity to the municipality, was 2 million. Only 2 million. The contract was extended, it was then again extended. So in terms of the material irregularity process, how it works, we first issue the finding. The municipality literally has 1 year to respond and making sure there's an investigation done, consequence management happens. So if that part does not occur, the next step as part of the role of the Auditor General, we issue recommendations in the audit report. There's another chance. Now remember, this was in 1819 when the finding was picked up. There's another chance now for you to course correct based on the recommendations that has been issued. Recommendations has been issued, nothing happened. The contract continued and was extended twice. Subsequently to that, then the Auditor General has a responsibility after we've given recommendations. And then what we also do, we activate all the role plays in the accountability ecosystem when we issue the material, the remedial action. So this would be council, mayor, be legislate all the perspective in that regard. So since then, also no consequence, no investigation happened, no recovering of the money. So within the powers of the Auditor General, she's got the power to issue a certificate of debt. But before we came there, we've allowed the time for the remedial action to occur, which did not happen, and it's binding. Subsequently to that, she then notified the accounting officer that she's got the intention to issue a certificate of debt. You've got another chance now to make sure you do the right thing. After the notification, you as the accounting officer, you can do a written submission to the advisory committee, which is an independent committee appointed by the Auditor General that advises her, and you can come and do oral representation. You can basically state your case and indicate what are the steps that you are going to follow to either recover the money and make sure consequence management happen. Based on the advisory committee advised the Auditor General to issue to continue with the certificate of debt in the name of the accounting officer. Based on that, the AG made that decision. So that was issued in October 2025 to the accounting officer, and then now based on this, after 30 days of issue this material irregularity, interest will accrue. And what we do find, Mike, just generally in the system, when it comes to us issuing these material irregularities, there's a very slow response, where we literally have to go to the next step, recommendation, remedial action, where we don't get the intended action to what this specific tool was intended to do.
So is this something that we can expect to see more of, do you think, in the future?
Definitely much more of.
Thank you. Minister, coming back to you, one other potential area of intervention that you have spoken about, and I believe was discussed also at the Indaba, is the possibility of reducing the overall number of municipalities. We have 257 in total at the moment, and again, some people argue that it would be more efficient to reduce that number somewhat. Can you tell us what the thinking is there briefly?
After 1995, we had more than 1,000 municipalities. The number has been going down from over 1,000 to 257 now. We have not yet get it right. We still have municipalities, they can't pay salaries. They can't pay the contribution to medical aid, to pension fund, sewerage is running down in front of the offices of the municipalities. They can't fix potholes simply because they are not fit for purpose. The view, which has been clearly spelled in the review, is that we need to do away with municipalities that are not fit for purpose. We are looking at various scenarios, that how far you should reduce. But when you reduce, you must not just reduce for the sake of reducing. You must be guided by reduce to a model that is going to work for people. The structure must be fit for purpose, even if you give them money, because currently municipalities are given money under MIC. Some can't use it. So now you can complain that the funding model is not good, but the truth, even the money given goes back to National Treasury. Why? There is no capacity. Now, when you reduce that these municipalities are not fit for purpose, you must also concentrate on the human resource. And in dealing with reducing, we will need to say not one size fit all. It must be a differentiated approach when you look at the structuring. I do not want to dictate, because I'm a custodian. Review. The public has made wonderful ideas, and our team that is weighing these ideas will come up with a proposal which the political parties as representatives pull in general. We will call a broad meeting and say, here is an outcome, here is a proposal. If people say cut them to 100 because of A, B, C, D, these 100 municipalities will be fit for purpose. You will have councillors at broad spectrum of the stakeholders. My sister from the civil society says people have lost trust on democracy. Democracy have not failed, but it is people whom we elected failed. As a result, trust deficit is okay between the electorate and the government. We need to fix that one by the structure of our municipal. And of course, Mike, include 257 reduced. There are municipalities that are not fit for purpose, and keeping them will not be doing justice to the residents of those areas. But amalgamating intention of having a municipality that will be fit for purpose, we will have been taking a bold decision in the interest of people.
Thanks, Minister. There are quite a number of questions in the Q&A that raise a problem of time. As we said at the beginning, we are pretty much 12 months before the next set of elections. We've heard that there's a bill in Parliament to deal with coalitions. There's been an indaba, there is a review of the white paper. There's a lot happening around the policy and legislation of local government, but we only have 12 months. And we know with elections that, or 2 or 3 months before the actual elections, politicians in particular are busy campaigning. So some of these questions are asking, is there time for these interventions to work before our next elections? And if not, what happens then? Do we just continue as before and then take another 5 years to change things? Jaap, is there time for these interventions to happen before the next elections?
I think for most of the big ticket interventions that we have been discussing and the minister is raising, there's no time for the elections. I mean, in terms of policy and legislative reform before the elections, there's very little that can be done before the elections. But that's okay. This is a long-term, the white paper review process is a very long-term process, and it's reimagining local government. So that is always going to take much longer. I think the coalitions bill could be passed before the elections, and that would certainly help if it makes those small changes that makes the coalition management slightly more transparent and manageable. And I think other than that, we shouldn't expect any legislative reform to take place before the elections. But I do think there's a change of heart already happening that I see as positive. I think the minister spoke about the caliber of councillors and prescribing qualifications for office bearers such as chairpersons of MPAC and a speaker and a mayor. I think that's constitutionally quite difficult because now you're saying to a politician, I'm limiting your right to stand for public office on the basis of you having or not having qualification. So that's going to be raised, that issue.
Yeah.
But it's already happening. You now see political parties saying, we will prescribe those competency requirements. The ANC came out today and said, a few days ago, saying, we're going to ask of all our councillors that they have a tertiary qualifications. So I think we can maybe bypass a lot of the constitutional difficulties if the culture of on quality and indeed political parties themselves will insist that their candidates have quality. I want to quickly respond to the certificate of debt issue because it's a big one. It's a big, I won't say a milestone, it's a negative milestone in our trajectory. It's good of the AG, but it's a signal of very deep problems in local government. The one problem I have with the scenario is that imagine this, there is a municipal manager with a weak back. He gets an instruction from his mayor, you shall appoint service provider X because they're buddies of mine. You will appoint them. And the municipal manager does it because he doesn't have a backbone. The municipality loses lots of money, millions. So far, not an uncommon scenario. This happens all the time. Because the municipal manager doesn't have a backbone, he doesn't survive. He resigns. The AG picks up on the problem and says this is a material irregularity, this is a serious problem, and starts that process that Sharon just outlined. But the municipal manager who made the mistake is long gone. Can't get to him, he resigned. The process goes on. It will never really touch the mayor because the municipal manager was supposed to stand up against the mayor. manager could perhaps come in and could be someone who's really full of integrity and enthusiasm and wants to change things around, and he or she must then recover the losses and follow the instructions of the AG. And if that doesn't work, then the new municipal manager who came in with the greatest intentions and competence but didn't manage to recover the loss, he or she will be held personally accountable. So my question then is, who in his or her right mind would want to work for local government? And this is a thing me. But speak to consultants, they'll never work for local government. That place, human has to cover personal mistakes or not the mistakes, the mischief of others. Well, not only from the point of view how it affects the overall system, because it's local government not really and practitioners who have integrity.
Because if you want to dismiss them, it can take you many years to deal with that one. The first option, capacitate them or redeploy them if they were wrongly placed. If you have done everything and nothing works, then you create an exit process for people who are not fit for job. This will be very easy. Something good about a human being. When time for play is over, every human being becomes sober. The time for play is over now. It is time for consequence management. And once we are able to introduce depoliticization effectively, political leadership have competencies, because in most cases, a competent mayor cannot force a competent MM to do a wrong thing. In most cases, an incompetent mayor, even if a competent MM raises a finger that this is not right, he will say, I'm not interested in that one. You do it. Now, competency in the political leadership, competency in the administration will make even those who are in the system to wake up and perform through capacity support, redeployment, and if all fails, you fire them.
Thank you. Thank you. The tough words.
Things will be okay the day when an official has done something wrong, immediately suspend. If you can reach that stage, everyone will not go wrong because they know it's time for consequence management. Suspend, fire, then you will get it right.
And issue a certificate of debt. That's it. I'm going to bring it to a close there for, among other reasons, the minister has to fly to Pretoria now. So we said we would stop at 5:30 and we've gone a few minutes over. My deep thanks to all four of my panelists. I'm not going to name everybody again, but thank you all for your contributions. This has been, to a certain extent, an exercise in accountability, particularly having the minister here with us. It's deeply appreciated and valued. Also from the state, the Office of the Auditor General. We in civil society are used to getting together and talking to each other like this. Thank you very much to the live audience here in the room, and again, a special thanks to those of you who've been watching this on Zoom, and my apologies for the connection dropping once or twice, but I think it survived most of the time. Apologies also to the questions in the Q&A that we were not able to get to. There were quite a few left, but I hope we covered most of the points raised there. Please do take a moment to fill in that form before you disappear, either online or in person. And those of you who are here, please join us afterwards for a little drink and something to eat. network. We will come back to this theme next year, certainly. In the run-up to the elections, we will be convening one or more similar events around local government issues, and I hope to see many of you there. And with that, thank you very much, and drive home safely, fly safely.